Welcome to Common Off the Shelf, a podcast for the modern Contra and preppers. We discuss items, books, and topics from a common man's perspective, and our opinions are our own. Do not take any of these as hard facts, only as our interpretation and understanding in a flawed world of amazing products, price gouging, and cheap crap. Your results may vary, and your needs may differ depending on where you live and what you know. So don't take this as a blanket endorsement for all people in every situation. Just like camouflage, your abilities and needs will vary. This is a conversation about hypotheticals and fiction with these items, and never is an endorsement of the owner, author, or any actions. Lastly, we are just common men and not experts in the fields. If we get it wrong, great, tell us. If there is something better, let us know. I can't believe I had to say this, but some of you window lickers made this necessary. Hello, everybody. Welcome to our podcast tonight. I am going to be talking with Rabbit, Mando, and a guest named X. Rabbit, you want to say hello to everybody?
Yeah, what's going on, guys? Appreciate it. Nice to be here.
Mando, you in here good and go?
Yeah, brother, I'm here.
X, you on?
Yeah, man. Ready to roll.
Awesome. All right. Tonight's conversation is going to be about a post that I kind of started. And this was a conversation that started on X a little while ago. A couple guys posted about firearms that they recommend to people. And they had specifically talked about, should you buy an expensive rifle? Should you buy a cheap rifle? And I kind of compounded this conversation a little bit. And I said, how often do you fire a weapon? And I posted a little poll out here, and I kind of want to read what we came up with. I gave you 4 options. I said, do you shoot weekly, monthly, every other month, quarterly, or longer? And 16% said they shoot weekly. 64% said monthly. 4% said every other month. And 16% said quarterly or longer. A couple guys in here had some interesting comments, and I'm going to just quickly go over them. One gentleman said, if you're not shooting at least once a week, I think you're kind of behind the curve. I don't believe in the prepping thing, but if you carry a gun, you should be shooting regularly. Relying on dry fire, VR, airsoft, etc. will only get you so far, but I understand most cannot do that. I'm lucky to get to the range once a month. Daily life gets in the way, as I suspect is the same for most folks. In terms of preparedness, gun skills get a little lower priority, just as health, fitness, and everything we know we should be doing, but don't. And the last one says, definitely going to try and hit the range weekly, but as you know, that rarely works out. Just picked up the Mantis Blackbeard X, looking forward to trying it out. Now, I'm going to say I own some of that stuff too. We're going to specifically stick on some weapons conversations and pretty much how much everybody shoots tonight. So I'm going to say when I'm out in certain regions of the U.S., I shoot weekly. When I get to some of the urban areas, I shoot maybe once every 2 months because it's kind of hard to do that here. Rabbit, how often do you get to the range for live fire?
Live fire, definitely, to be honest, it's probably once a month. Maybe a little more, but it's not as much as I'd like. But I got a couple indoor ranges here. I don't have a lot of options outdoor range-wise, unless I want to drive north of 2 hours, which kind of sucks, but that's kind of what I'm sitting in right now.
Mando, I'm going to go to you, and I hope you have a really nice answer for me, but who knows?
It's a toss-up because of the weather. Like, obviously, like living in the north in the wintertime, it's harder to get out. It's much less comfortable, and there's no indoor ranges in my area. So when it's nice, I sometimes I go out twice a week, and when it's nasty, it might be a month or 2 in between. So if you wanted to average it off, I would say probably once a week at least.
Yeah, that's nice. When I was out working out west, and you could shoot just about anywhere where I was shooting 2 times a week at least. It wasn't a whole bunch of rounds, but yeah, it's really nice when you can have that opportunity. X?
Yeah, so I would say for me, in my current situation, I shoot probably about 6 times a year live fire. But again, not that this becomes an advertisement for Mantis or anything like that, but man, I use that thing all the time. So I get plenty of practice, and I've got plenty of natural experience, with some of my previous trades. But current time frame, nah, I don't shoot that often. But still don't feel uncomfortable. I think everybody just really needs to kind of think to themselves and make the determination, do you actually feel comfortable with your skills, or do you feel like you need to be pushing a little bit harder? Because just to tell somebody, hey, go shoot once a week, that person might go shoot once a week and still suck at it. If you're not practicing the proper skills frequently, it doesn't matter how often you go do it. So, something to be said about that.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. I think the gentleman who was talking about you should be shooting once a week, I think that's extremely important for new shooters. I don't think that's always capable, and I think a lot of the dry firing systems. I know Mando wants to talk about that at some point, and we will definitely have a discussion about dry fire technology. I even wrote an article on it, and I'm not the expert, nor am I an expert on firearms tonight, which I probably should have prefaced. I think everybody here, besides Mando, who has a lot more knowledge in this field, we're going to give our answers, and you may disagree with us, and that's totally fine. We might be, but the conversation on X had turned into what gun do you get? Do you tell somebody to buy a high quality weapon or a crappy weapon? And I'm going to talk about my choices, and this is my initial choices for firearms when I first got in and went, man, I need to prepare myself. And it wasn't a prepper stage in my life, but it's like I need something good quality, a rifle and a pistol for my protection. And the first thing I went to was an AK, not because I hated the AR. I was in the military. I wanted something a little different, and I've been told, oh, this 7.62 by 39, it's a bigger round and all that other stuff. But I also ended up with a 9mm. And being wrong-handed in the year I was in, there was 3 good weapons out there. HK-USP, the SIG 226, and Walther was out there, and the Glock. So 4. I ended up with the Walther P99. So that kind of dates me, but those were the two pistol. That was the pistol rifle combo I kind of looked at, and at the time I actually ended up with a really good AK for pretty cheap because they weren't expensive at the time. Straight shooter. I'm gonna go grab it. What'd you grab onto? What'd you grab first, and what'd you say? Hey, this is my go-to rifle at the time.
I guess it's kind of two-part for me. I was not a gun guy, I guess you can say, up until, I guess, met the current friends I know now. Military enthusiast, stuff like that. Not gonna lie, wanted to go Air Force. Ended up going Army instead. Whatever. I actually picked up an AK. I think it was with you. Ended up meeting that guy over in Hilton Head. He was selling his, and I got that Egyptian AK. That was the first gun ever I had. But when I really started thinking about prepping, I actually picked up the Bren 2, that Czechoslovakian rifle that they're currently using. I was kind of enthralled with its caliber conversion, where you can actually change the caliber, or you can actually convert the caliber between 7.62 by 39 to 5.56, and it actually takes those mutant mags or a Stanag, depending on what ammo type you've chosen. Obviously, you change your barrel and your bolt, but actually currently it's just sitting at a 7.60 by 39, and then for training, I've kind of started to lean towards 5.56. So I'm kind of been a misfit of both. AR because familiar, AK because I think it's an easy platform to learn. The brand I've liked because it's been very durable. It eats everything that I've given it so far. But I know I'm kind of a misfit in that premise.
X, I'm going to go to you on this one and see what you picked up.
Yeah, so like a lot of guys that came out of Appalachian, I actually started with a shotgun. Just a regular pump action shotgun. And I know that we're going to focus more on rifles, and I'll get to kind of where I landed, but I tell you, for starting out, man, it's hard to beat. Wasn't too expensive at the time, still really not today. Ammo is pretty plentiful. You can legally hunt in most places with it currently under the, rule of law that we've got. And it's a shotgun, right? Like, it's great for somebody that's new. It doesn't have to fight with some of the precision training and skills. You just point and click most days. A good reliable pump shotgun that's got a couple different barrels and choke configurations is very inexpensive and is a super way to get started. Really, after that, I guess for me, it was a 308 bolt action, just a Remington 700, one of their tacticals that I really liked a lot. But I think, like most folks, training and funds became a little bit more stable. I definitely went to the AR. Again, just like the rest of you guys, being an Army guy, AR-15 is a great rifle, and then getting one in a 308 variant has been one of my favorite tools to work with. But yeah, ended up in the AR platforms, but still have a soft place in my heart for a bolt action and a shotgun.
Mando, what say you?
Well, I did 14 weeks in OSUT, so I went right to the gun that I'd had the most training on, which was basically an M16A4. And I was shooting competition when I bought my first one. So it was a clone of that as Bushmaster AR-15, 20-inch barrel, heavy pattern with the Picatinny, detachable charging handle. And I still have it. I shot the absolute crap out of that thing. I still have, it's in a different configuration now, but that was my first one. And then I started having some issues with certain things, and I wanted a 30 caliber. All I had was an M1 Grand, so I started loading those 8-round stripper clips, and I had bandoliers everywhere. But AR-15, I think Eugene Stoner actually designed the M16 to fit my body because A2 buttstock, the grip, I mean, it literally fits me perfectly. It is the most comfortable rifle. I can get in the sling and fall asleep on the rifle, and I have.
Nice. I love a 20-inch barrel on an AR. What a great combo. That's such a great place to start, too.
Well, and in service rifle competition, I had iron sights, so I was shooting iron sights. But the Army had given me a CCO, the aim point. I think it was the M3. I can't remember what model it was exactly, but I did really well with that little red dot. Never really got into scopes because in competition we were only allowed iron sights until I think it was like 2015 or 16 when they switched over. And so I was just like, I'm going to shoot iron sights for my whole life. I shot service rifle competition. I shot combat matches in the military. And then I went to Palma, which is iron sights. So it was, for me, I was way behind the curve. And I actually didn't really realize until the last couple of years about how far behind I was on optics and equipment and the new gear. And I was a GWAT baby, but really not because I kind of skipped all the cool guy stuff and went, in the Army Guard and then went into the Air Guard. So it was a little different for me.
I like your choice. I started off with a Bushmaster. No, correction. No, I think it was a Bushmaster. It might have been a Colt, but I think it was a Bushmaster. It was an AR-15 with an 11.5-inch barrel, and it had one of those pinned-on stupid 5-inch flash
Yep.
suppressors that had the cut-in bird cage. And at the time, I didn't know any better. And this kind of rolls into the next question: is do you regret your initial purchase? And we'll dive into a little later and say what would you do better. But right now, I'm going to start with I guess Mando because you're still up. Do you regret what you bought initially? And what'd you get for a pistol, by the way?
Oh, an M9. So, and absolutely not. No, I don't, because that was the system those were the systems I was training on the most, right? Those were, I was on the state team. So, and in the guard, you have a allocation for ammunition for practice, and then it's issued at the matches, but it's all has to be out of the same stuff, right? So it's a rack grade rifle with basically surplus ammo, but it's military issue ammo. And so I had the M16 A2 equivalent and an M9 equivalent, which is the 92 FS, whatever. And I didn't regret it at all because I was like, well, this is what we're shooting in competition. This has got to be where, the majority of the force is. And not knowing that it was Vietnam era style competition, right? So, of course, as they say, we're always fighting the last war or we're training for the last war, whatever. That's where it was. And so I was shooting a lot of practice on my own time with my own ammunition that was equivalent to what they were issuing with my own systems. And it panned out for me because I went pistol distinguished, which we can talk about that a little later, in 1 year, and then rifle distinguished in 2. And in the military, you've got expert class, and then you go further than that, right? And you've got the special forces guys, which are like super shooters. But then in the competition world, where you can qualify higher, and we can discuss that later. But no, not at all. I was training and using them in practice, and I had them in my vehicles all the time. I mean, the guys even knew me to the point where I could just go on base and they wouldn't even look in my car anymore. They were just like, "Oh, you're on the competition team, so you're good to go." And it was a waiver I had with the command and all that stuff, so it wasn't like it was illegal. But no, I loved it. It was great. And would I do anything differently with the knowledge I had at the time? If you took the knowledge I had then and fast forwarded it today, yeah, I would adapt the equipment that matched the competition style shooting that I would be doing, right? So no, I would say it would fall in line with
So
what
you might
I
have a
would be
Sig
doing.
320 now, and maybe some variant of an M16, or maybe even the new rifle that's come out.
I mean, whatever the mainline force system is that we're using for those competitions, yes, I would have whatever falls in line with that as my starter if I was going to start right now. Is that where people should start today? I don't think so. We can talk about that more later.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. Rabbit, tell me what your pistol was, and do you regret it now looking back on it? Would you have changed anything at that time?
Pistol wise, first pistol ever I picked up was a Smith & Wesson M&P. That was actually the 1.0 first gen. That was the one that had a lot of the. They said it was a malfunction. I said it was a feature. Where you would ultimately, if you, after emptying a mag, your slide would lock to the rear, put your magazine back in, it would actually auto drop the slide. I thought it was awesome. They said it was unsafe. That's on them. That's what they legally say. I think it's great. It's worked great for me. That's another gun I very, very much liked, at least on the pistol side. Eats everything. To me, I got a weird hand, man. Like I got like weird, long, lengthy, creepy fingers. So for me, ergonomically, it was nice to have that larger grip. I still use that pistol. It still has never let me down. But rifle choice, at least, I debate back and forth about commonality between my group members as to whether or not using a unfamiliar or uncommon base platform would be detrimental or not. Though I've never had issues with the Bren system, and obviously I've been training with the Bren 1, which I got the 1 and the 2. The Bren 1 is just the 5.56. It's real. It's been very bulletproof for me. But if or when it fails, I mean, it is a piece of machinery. There is a possibility of that happening. I imagine parts will be harder to find. I have extra parts, bolts. I even have a barrel, a couple other parts that may or may not go through their lifetime. But that's probably my only regret. Gun shoots amazing. I mean, I don't know if we'll talk about. I think we talked about optics a little bit, but I was iron sights pretty much hardcore the whole way as well, just because reliability. At the time, we were, I want to say probably 10, 15 years ago, red dots were kind of hit or miss. We had the M68.
Yeah,
I think that was the M68. I think was that the base for the Army.
We ran those
I think
comp M4s on our M4s. They're basically the 68s. Yeah, we had those.
Yep.
And they were just, to me, they were bulky. I didn't love them. They did their job, but I also wasn't of a unit that I didn't actually get an ACOG until we went out towards different units, and we went towards. Actually, when I went to my aviation unit, they gave me a freaking ACOG, which I thought was crazy since I definitely didn't shoot it once I got to an aviation unit. But nonetheless, I love what I picked. I'm a little on the fence as to whether or not I should go. I mean, I still have an AR-15, but whether or not my first go out or my primary should be what would we call that?
Your go-to rifle.
Yeah,
Just
would that be like a legacy? I guess the AK and the AR I would consider being like your two legacy
yeah.
maybe platforms. Um,
Well, they're
other than that, I
ubiquitous.
love what I pick. Yeah, maybe that's the best way to put it, and just say, hey, look, this is obviously those are going to be your two big platforms. I'm currently not running that. Little debatable, but pistol wise, I probably will never change. I know a lot of guys are running Glocks now. I just never found them to. I don't know. Maybe I'm just bad. I just can't shoot them really well. They just don't. They do what I want, but they're not. I'm not a big fan, unfortunately. Even though they're super common, everybody's running
I'll
them
learn
now.
you.
Hey, I'll take a shooting date any day of the week.
I personally
Don't threaten me with a good time.
I personally think the Glock is an amazing pistol, and I'll never knock it. And I've helped sell a bunch of those. I don't like the grip for my hand. That's a personal thing. I have small female hands, and they are not good on that gun. I also, being mostly left-handed, ambidextrous, did not like that Glock didn't really give anything to the left-hander. As the feature you were talking about on the slide release, when you slap a mag home, that happened on the HK, the SIGs, and the Walthers when I was getting into shooting, and that was a feature, not a problem. I could see where it is, because if you slapped one home and the round didn't go into the chamber, you didn't have control. That was their argument. But I also think that comes from the context of the people who are getting these weapons nowadays are police, law enforcement, and obviously us, private citizens. But a lot of those guys don't train. And this also falls back on the question I posted: how often do you shoot? When you shoot weekly and even monthly, you know your firearm fairly well. Law enforcement wants requals one time a year. When I first got into the military, I I don't remember what the qualification standards were, but for my stupid job, it was like 3 years. You had to requalify every 3 years. I watched at the start of GWAT somebody pick up a rifle and not know how to hold it, because that individual, that lady, hadn't shot in over 10 years anything. So, but that's digressing. I need to go on to X, because I've got the same question for you about what do you think about your choices.
We didn't talk about it, but handgun is one of those skills that I've never really had as much training with professionally as I did with a carbine and a rifle. So, my first pistol, anybody a big fan of Metal Gear Solid back in the day? Dude,
Yeah.
I came home from overseas and I
Oh
bought
man,
a
Solid
USP.
Snake all the way.
I bought a USP 45, and I
Oh,
loved that
baby.
gun. I loved that gun. Now, I will
That's
tell
a dirty
you,
talk right there.
yeah, and it gets even better. Trying to carry conceal that heifer is like, you have to have magic to do that. And I didn't. Loved it though. Shot like a dream. But I guess regret's too strong of a word. But I would say that, I don't regret ultimately trading that one out. Currently, top two choices, obviously Glock 19, run that in the streets, and then I've got my CZ, and that one's for the sheets. So when I wanna look the part, the CZ comes out. When I'm walking the streets, the Glock rolls tight. It's both great platforms. Glock 17, Glock 19, and all the new variants out there are just fantastic. But I think if someone were to be like, hey, we've got to go grab one of these two guns, I'm grabbing the PO1. I through a fortunate series of events, through some law enforcement contacts, I got my hands on one of those tactical urban gray ones that are basically unobtainium, and I will never give up that pistol, ever. That's probably my favorite. But practical everyday use, Glock 19 all day.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people who get into the CZ fandom, I feel like that they all have Glocks, but they come out with their little teacup in their hand or their coffee cup, and their pinky finger sticks out a little bit, and they just feel a little bit better and a little bit more superior to everybody else when they carry it. They're phenomenal weapons, though.
Not flexing on anybody. I'm not going to tell you to go shoot once a week. I'm not going to flex on anybody because I don't agree with that. Yeah, I run a Glock pretty much any day of the week. But yeah, having that CZ metal frame, I love a metal frame pistol, and it's lightweight because it's not just solid steel; it's something else, some alloy. Great shooting, laser beam, just a phenomenal gun. But yeah, that's where I landed with handguns. As far as rifles and shotgun, do I regret it? Of course not. Shotgun you can use for anything forever. Beat it to hell and knock it back into shape and it'll work fine. Same thing with a bolt gun, no issues there. And of course, like we talked about, I think it's smart. I think Rabbit was saying something about thinking about your team composition. Having your home defense weapons, you really run whatever you feel like. But if you're going to be working in a team setting for any reason whatsoever, it's smart to have continuity there, especially magazines and ammo. I mean, if somebody needs a little extra, you can top them off without having to, you know, download a mag and reload it into a different type of mag or something like that. So, whatever your group of folks tend to run with AKs or ARs or something in between, just find common ground there. Doesn't have to have the exact same model, but find common ground. The only thing I'd say is, same thing, if I had to grab one and run out the door based on team composition, it'd be the 308 AR.
That's a good balance
Just
for a lot of teams.
Yeah, just to add that little extra range, a little extra power to a team of everybody already carrying short carbines, having one sort of heavy tends to kind of round everybody out. But yeah, no regrets there.
And
I gotta agree with you there.
I think I'll give my little thing on this because we talked about it. I would still pick up the Walther P99 every day with the double action, single action trigger. When I was shooting fast, that thing would come out of the holster and I'd put 2 rounds in a target probably an inch apart because that first trigger pull was so heavy, but the second one, because of the recoil and everything else, I put 2 rounds downrange. And I still probably one of my favorite shooters on the market. Unfortunately, they're no longer being produced. I don't know if I regret the AK. I like the AK, and my theory back then was from a merchant style theory of if the world collapsed, who's going to get resupply first? Is it going to be Americans resupplying themselves? Are all the factories going to be down? Or are foreign nations going to come in and resupply, quote unquote, the troops or the people? And I thought first guys are going to be over here are going to be the illegal arms dealers that travel around Africa and the Middle East in vessels, and all they carry is old AKs. And I was like, I'll be able to get ammo. I was living on the coast at the time. Thought, I'm near a port, close enough but far enough away. That's probably where it'll go. Nowadays, I don't do that. And I'll go to every one of you guys about this too. Most of us have been to brush beater courses. And one of the things that pushed me away from the AK is the fact everybody there has an AR. Everybody there has a 308 AR. Not because everybody has just that weapon. It wasn't their first choice. But the uniformity, everybody runs on it. And Scout trains AK classes, AR-15 classes, because they're so ubiquitous all over the country. And it varies from place to place. And as you travel out west, you'll see longer range stuff. People start going a little more 308 because you need that range. You can see people for 1,000 yards. East Coast, you get a 150, 200 yard shot on anyone who's trying to hide. Good luck. But
that's a great point, man. Just to remind folks that you've just got to be aware of your surroundings. And I completely agree. Like, oh, I want a 50 cal. Bro, you can't see 100 yards down the street to the neighbor's house. What are you going to use that for?
You go to Utah, you can use it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. You want to go
if you can recognize who it is.
Well, and that PID is a whole different conversation. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, what was it? I think a study came out of Iraq after we were over there, and it was something to the effect of the average small arms engagement range was 98 meters. Or something to that effect. It was right around 98. Mando, you might remember better than me, but I think it was like less than 100 meters. So, average modern conflict, you get at 100 yards? Because that's probably what most of that's going to look at.
And
Afghanistan's, yeah.
It wasn't drastic. It was, I want to say, double or triple that max. But it was still in the range of an AR-15, and that was something that I think a lot of people forget, like, most of these places have some micro terrain to work on.
Right.
But again, you go out to Utah, Colorado, Montana, Wyoming, places like that. You've got Texas, even Oklahoma. It's just flat. You can see a long distance, but if somebody wants to hide, they're going to get low and they're going to hide themselves. I'm going to kick on to the next question is, and this is for the guys who are listening, and I know most of the people listening right now are guys who've gone to this class, read on American Partisan, so you guys are all prepped up. But I also want this for the common guy. So right now, with the knowledge you have, what would you recommend to a new guy? And pick a rifle, pick a pistol, or pick a shotgun. I looked at shotguns. The first thing I got was a AK, and then the second thing I was a Mossberg 500. It was a little bit easier on ambidextrous, and I kind of dug it. And then I put a Nox stock, which turned into a Blackhawk stock, and that was the worst mistake ever. But I guess, Amanda, you haven't talked for a while. What do you think about, what would you recommend to somebody for their first rifle, and let's just say in your area for now?
Well, real quick, I'll just touch on what X was saying, and I just literally just Googled it because I couldn't remember, because I know that in the United States, SWAT engagements, I think, are either 62 or 68 yards, right? So very short. That's the average. Most engagements in firefights are, I think, 16. But what online says is Afghanistan's at least 300. Iraq was 26 to 126. So call that 76. So his memory is very good. Average that off, right? So, and then to answer your question, so today, if I was going to pick something up, I would go with an AR-15.
Would you recommend somebody that, like, because you
Yep.
have the opportunity to get stuff, and I'll even add on to this because I think this is a good question for you, and we may segue into another whole podcast on this. Would you tell them to buy something like a PSA, which was another question off X, where they were talking about would you get a high quality one or not, or would you tell them to get something higher quality, and maybe even a suggestion?
Well, right
You
now
pick.
I'm still gonna go with the AR-15 for a new guy, and
Okay.
here's why I picked that platform. You're gonna have the most options. You're gonna have long rifles if that's what you need. You can pick different cartridges. You can pick shotguns. You can make pistols out of them. If you want to be able to conceal something, burley stocks make nice backpacks you can take, and you can either put a 10.5 inch with a folding stock in the backpack, so it's basically a pistol, or you can break it in half, take the upper and lower part and stick it in there, and you've got a rifle with you everywhere you go. If you're out west, you want to pop the cartridge power up a little bit. The 6 Creedmoor and the 22, I'm sorry, the 6 Arc and the 22 Arc are phenomenal cartridges, just blowing stuff away. The Valkyrie. So if you need something that has a similar ergonomic capability, but you need a little bit more power, you can start with your 5.56 223 and then say, hey, I just swapped my upper and I can use similar magazines. I'm not a fan of that, and I'll go into that a little bit here. But my first choice is going to be to talk to the guy and find out where he is economically, because there you can start with a $300 rifle off of the cheapest. Go to the big box store and buy the cheapest AR-15, and it might be fine. Or you can go and you can buy some really nice ones that are $2,000 or more just for the rifle. That doesn't include optics, a sling, attachments, lights, lasers, none of that. That's just the gun, right?
if it,
So
if you had somebody that was well to do but not, let's say, upper middle class, so he had the opportunity to buy high, but he's just getting into prepping, just walking
it,
in the door.
it's a really hard question to
Mm-hmm.
answer because I need to know the guy. I mean,
It's fair.
I really budget is where it's going to come in, and I'm getting through it. Just give me just a second,
Yeah.
because I can have a really wealthy guy, but he's really stingy, and he's like, well, I just want something that'll work. Okay, fine. We're going to look at and Ruger and Palmetto, and I'm just going to kind of give him a few options and say, hey, which one do you like the best? I'm going to, hey, because his eyeballs are going to go, oh, I like that one.
Yep.
The Saint with all the B5 stuff on it that Springfield makes, that's a nice starting rifle, right? And the stuff that I've seen from Palmetto is all fantastic also. So I think if I had to buy a gun off the rack, I'd be looking in that that range, even for me, something that's got a decent barrel and it's got the right setup on the handguard and decent ergonomic parts, grip, and buttstock. Because when X can talk about this, that M4 stock that we had, what a piece of crap. I mean, they worked,
For
but
sure.
they rattle and they don't lock up nice, so your position sucks. And the big fat stupid handguards, they all suck. And so nowadays, with all the stuff that you can M-lock on there or key mod, if you're still old, I don't know what that's about. I still see that, but I think that's the way to go. Just kind of an introductory. One of the good, and here's the other thing to talk about. If you need to pick up something, you need to make sure that you can get good support, because right now we still have lights are on. We can go get ice at the convenience store, and if something happens, you want to have a good warranty. Palmetto is good. Springfield is excellent. They're one of the best warranty for a factory type gun in the gun industry, right? Ruger is a good one. So and I'm just throwing some out. There's obviously some other good ones. But if you wanted to go higher, you can, because the sky is the limit. A good LPVO or a red dot with a magnifier. In my opinion, you cannot pass on magnification. I don't care.
You're gonna harass the X people to death because they've already started talking about the LPVO was not great, but that's a whole other story.
I don't care about that as
Yeah.
much. I care. It's the person. It's the
Yeah.
guy behind the trigger, right? And the point is you have to have the ability to identify your target.
Yep.
And a red dot is not going to do it for you. You can go with a prism. That's fine. You can get a ACOG or a Vortex 5-power prism scope, or
Primary arms is phenomenal.
primary or
Right
Holosun or
now.
whatever you want.
Love
Yeah,
mine.
absolutely. That's fine, but you have to have something.
Yeah.
And an LPVO fits the bill as well, or a flip magnifier. That's fine, but you have to have something. And I'll give you a couple of instances why. The scout course in February, we're only shooting at 400, but we're shooting at 33% IPSC targets, so they're 1/3 size of a standard IPSC, which I believe, if I remember correctly, is 16 by 30 or something close to that. The guy could barely see the target. You have to find the target and basically walk your red dot in until the target disappears, and it's really difficult to hold off, call your shots, anything like that. So he had a hard time, and then I did the same thing. I built a 6.5 Creedmoor bolt gun for hunting, and I wanted to go as light as possible. It's a whole nother story, but long story short, I put a red dot on it. I wanted to do iron sights, but I couldn't find the sights I wanted, so I ended up throwing a Vortex 3 MOA red dot on top, sitting in the deer's blind, hunting. Deer comes out, and I'm like, oh, that's a decent body doe. Put the rifle up, squeeze the trigger, falls down. Sitting there glassing it afterwards, pull my binoculars out, look at it. It's a little 5-point buck. So now I just wasted my buck tag, and I know there's a moose on the property, and now I can't shoot one, right? So it's whether you're looking at certain shapes or certain targets that have 4 legs, magnification is really important. Then all the other stuff comes after.
Yeah, I'd agree with you because I was running a red dot on the East Coast. You're not seeing anything in the woods around here past 100 yards unless you're in specific areas or power easements or roadways, etc. And when I was out west, you could see, and you need to know what the hell it was. So I agree with LPVOs. I also think there's other ways to magnify, and I don't think the flip ones, but that's a whole other story. The one question I do want to ask you one question. If you had more money, let's say 1,500 to 2,000, is there a go-to brand that you just be like, go get that one off the shelf?
I would try to do a custom build, just knowing what I know. If I had to pick one up off the shelf, what's that? What's the guys that Matt likes that?
Oh, Sons of Liberty Gunworks.
Sons of Liberty. They're pretty good. I probably would look at them, and then maybe if that's too high, step down a little bit. There's some other really good gun makers out there, but you can go like.
Is there anyone you stay away from?
Yes, but I don't remember the name of them right now off the top of my head, because I don't remember. They're the Bear. I think maybe it's Bear Creek Arsenal, and I don't want to talk bad about anybody, but there are more problems than it's worth dealing with, and so just try to get as best you can. But I'd probably build a custom. There's some custom AR-15 builders like Craddock Precision and Ross Precision Machine, and Compass Lake's not around anymore. But if you wanted to go to There's White Oak and Keystone Arsenal, stuff like that. Somebody that can build a custom gun for you, I would definitely go that route. And these guys usually have tiers, so you can go, hey, I just want the introductory, I want the starter barrel, but I want a specific build out. They can do that for you. I'll tell you, when you're gonna build or get an AR-15, and I can't speak to the AKs, but I can speak to AR-15s and the bolt guns. That there's basically four things that are going to set things apart for you: the barrel, the trigger, sights, and the ammunition is a big part of it. So, and when you put those into combination, it can turn into an excellent system. And if you have a rifle and you think it's shooting okay, but you're struggling with it, what I typically am going to recommend is that you change the trigger first. You want a lighter trigger that's got a better actuation. So basically, it breaks cleaner. Because I found this myself. I have very good shooting rifles, but I have 4.5 pound trigger. Well, I put a 1.5 pound trigger in, and all of a sudden my groups get better, right? It's the same thing with bolt guns. The 300 PRC, and then I drop instead of a 12-pound trigger, and I drop like a 4.5 or a 3-pound trigger in it, and all of a sudden the groups get better, right?
Yep.
The barrel, if you free float the barrel, that's a good way to start because you're not putting pressure on it. We can talk about that, but that's getting into the nitty gritty of some of the marksmanship stuff.
Yeah, I definitely want to go in with that with you later. I probably will have to have a sit down with you specifically for that. I'm gonna switch to Rabbit real quick, and I want to
Yep.
see what's your opinion, Rabbit. What would you recommend out the gate for people? They're just coming on. They're like, man, I need a rifle, maybe even a pistol. We can talk about a pistol too if you think there's one go to, or how you feel about that.
Yeah, obviously everything I would say would be very subjective. Just since I'm blunt and honest, um, mine is just usability. I'm not a tech guy in the gun industry. I'll never claim to be. Very cool. Love it to death. Love to, like I said, I'll take any shooting date if anybody's up for it. But my biggest thing is talking about, like what X said, since getting into, if you would consider it the prepping community, really diving into your community and saying, okay, it will do you next to no good if you don't have comparable equipment to certain people, as well as it will do you no good if you are not practicing with anything that you have. So,
Then let me change my question to you. You got
like,
five guys that come up and they don't know anything about rifles. And what rifle would you say, hey, go to? And their price, let's say their price level. I ran Mando up to the high end, but let's say they've got $1,000 to buy a rifle.
to be honest, for me, I would say I would do a probably mid-tier, I guess what you consider maybe mid-tier, and I'm just going to throw PSA out there just because I know them. I've had very good luck with them.
Yep.
Especially like what Mando said, hey, the lights are still on right now, and their products have been I have had zero issues with any of the stuff that I've bought from them, and I've definitely put at least, I'm not killing it like some of these YouTube guys might, but which again, I wish I could, I really do,
All of us
but
do.
yeah, oh yeah, the ammo and everything, but even them, I've tried. I felt like I've done my due diligence, and I would say, hey, if I got five guys, I would probably go and say AR-15, PSA. I probably would do upgraded furniture, to be honest, specifically, or I would go with the A2 stock, specifically because I've seen a bunch of people break their stocks before, especially those little adjustable pins. I've seen them shear off, and not being a super cool, I'm no tier 1 guy. If I've seen a non-tier 1 guy shear off a freaking pin, I feel like that's probably a point of weakness, but I probably would do I probably would stick with almost like a M16A2 or a AR-15, maybe 20-inch. And I've become a very big fan of the Primary Arms Prism sights
Yeah.
since we've tested them.
Yep.
I'm currently running the Primary Arms SL 5x36 prism with the Aurora reticle, and that has not only worked for me very well, but I've actually been able to learn a lot about how to use a scope or magnified optic and use it effectively, and not just use it for shooting, but for spotting. And granted, a scope, subjectively, I would say I can't replace a set of good binoculars with a scope, but I think that being able to say, okay, hey, that's what my target is. Hey, that's what they're wearing. Hey, can I make out 4 legs, 2 legs, antlers, no antlers,
Guns,
weapon, no weapon? I feel
radios.
like that's very important. Yeah, I feel like that's very important to know. And granted, also being on the East Coast, it has been made very clear to me through training and actually getting out into the brush and saying, oh, wow, yeah, there are some places, especially I would notate infrastructure and right of ways, especially we have a lot of them between high tension wires, highways, large roads, stuff like that. But at the same time, unless you're actively using those as point of contention, yeah, you get into the woods, you have, and
Yeah, don't
forgive
walk
my
down the road.
terminology. Yeah, forgive my terminology. I know you have your, what is it, that brush line, that intermediate, I think it's like the intermediate brush line in which you enter the tree line, and then
Mm-hmm.
past that you have your actual wooded forest. And that usually kind of opens up, but you get down south and you have palm groves all over the place.
It might as well be
Yucca,
Vietnam. There are
yeah. I mean,
places
you
where
run
you
into,
can't see 20 feet until you hit enough stuff for somebody to
yeah,
hide.
you'll probably trip and fall onto the guy before you shoot him.
Yeah, yeah.
Or if that's what your problem is, you probably will run into that. You'll probably run into, the yucca plant stabbing you every 20 feet. I mean, those suck. But your visibility is
Swamps.
pretty hampered. Yeah. Now, granted, now moving out of that area, going a little bit farther up north, I have a ton of farms. So yeah, if I'm in somebody else's property, hunting or whatever, I could see for a very long while. But that was manufactured for the most part. That's an unnatural vegetation because they've cut everything down to put crops or
But
row
when the
crops or
crops are
whatever.
up, but when the crops are up, how far can you see? And that's the thing
Yeah,
I saw in North Dakota. You can see for miles. Those houses are, God, 10 miles apart from 5, 10 miles apart from each other. You can see the other house. You can see the trees over there. Nothing in between during the cold season. We're not growing anything. In the summer, you can't see past the stalks. I had a moose come out and damn near hit my car up there, and then 2 weeks later they cut everything flat. You could see for miles. I want to go to X too. X, what do you think? What say you?
Yeah, I see we're coming up on time here soon, and I appreciate the opportunity to be here with you guys tonight, as always. Um, as y'all know, I'm highly opinionated, so I'm going to keep this real simple for the audience out there tonight. If you are new to this world and that you are trying to just get your feet wet and get started, go get you a Glock, 17 or 19, get a couple extra mags, and self-defense ammo just to get started. We'll set that one aside. Very similar, interestingly enough, to Rabbit, I think my vote's going to be a PSA. And I'm going to tell you exactly what I did with my first one and why. It won't take long. It's going to be the A2 stock. It's going to be a 20-inch barrel. Try to get the premium hammer forged. That's a little bit of extra
Chrome
money.
one.
Yeah, that one,
Yeah,
the
the FN makes them.
M16. Yeah, it's FN roll marked. I still have that barrel. And here's why: 20-inch barrel, you got more velocity. And if you know anything about internal external ballistics, velocity on a 5.56 is where the magic happens. So 20-inch barrel, basically you're building an A2 or A4 M16. You've got your irons, you've got your rail on top, and I would absolutely agree with Rabbit. Put yourself some type of optic on top. Red dot's fine if you live in a place where you're not going to see very far. I'm a huge fan of the prism optics, especially what's our What's our brand we were talking about earlier?
Primary Arms.
Primary Arms.
Primary,
Huge,
yep.
huge fan of their stuff. And now total cost right now, I mean, this rifle I'm talking about even with an optic, $1,000, $1,200 tops. Tops.
Yep.
I think you could probably build out the rifle for 700 or 800 maybe. So again, and here's the great thing about the AR. So you may be asking yourself, well, 20-inch barrel and a 5-power prism sight. Well, that's great for hunting, but what happens if I'm defending the house? So then you can talk about, well, here's the great thing about an AR. You just get a different upper. Save up a little bit more money, spend another $400 or $500 and get a short upper,
With a
and
new
then
optic.
put a red dot on it. Yeah. So now you can switch between. So if it's going to be your primary home defense gun for the next month, you throw the shorty on top. You're going to take it out in the woods and go hunting if you're allowed to do that or whatever. You throw the 20-inch on. You just want to quote patrol, throw the 20-inch on it. That extra velocity makes a difference. And again, not that even in a situation where, let's say, the rule of law has ended, you're not going to be clearing buildings. You're just not going to do it unless you want to die.
Or
So
if you're really
you
that
don't
suicidal.
need the 10.5 barrel, 10.5 shorty super tactical carbine. You're just going to get killed. Just don't. The guy with the shotgun's going to kill you. Just don't be that guy. Get you a 20-inch, and then if you want to get something a little more around about 16-inch, something like that, you don't have to fool with any of the legal stuff. Still a great platform, and all your friends will have one. And keep it simple for your starter. And I would even be the guy on here to say, don't spend a lot of money on your first one. Again, with Rabbit, have had nothing but success with PSA, have had no issues with mine, and the ability to upgrade is where it's really key. So 20-inch A2, get a basic optic or iron sights, whatever. You want to get another barrel? Great. You want to do an upgrade on that rifle? Just put a Geissele in it. Get a nice $100-some trigger. That right there, SSAE trigger will change everything in that rifle. And that is one you will never put down. That gun will run you forever. Oh, last but not least, I know we're at time. Most important thing you need to do is to make sure that your weapon has a bayonet lug, because you need to carry a bayonet.
I used to disagree with that, and then the Joe Dolio, he's posted quite a bit on that, and he made a really good point I think he also makes a point in the book. He said straight up, get a bayonet lug, not because you're going to be fighting with a bayonet against the enemy, but when you need to do crowd control,
Right.
Nobody grabs your weapon with a knife on it, and they showed that recently in the was it South Korea, where they were having what country was it? There was a country that just went nuts, and my brain.
South
Yeah,
Korea.
that's
Okay,
just
what's
South
that?
Korea.
Yeah, South Korea.
Yeah, and
South
there's
Korea,
images.
the martial law and such.
Yep, the martial law thing. And Dolio posted it on X. He's like, hey, look at this photo. They never would have grabbed it. And he's got a background in dealing with that. And he's like, get one. And that's something I was like, I don't want to like knife. How many times do we use bayonets? Nobody uses bayonets at all in combat. But we forget two things. One, and I do all the time, we forget most of us are not going to be formed into a military. We're going to be doing security for communities. We're going to be doing security for our groups. And we may be a guerrilla force. We may have to fit that role. And that may be something that's actually necessary. Now, there's some add-ons. I know there's some M-lock bayonet lugs and stuff like that to do that, too. And that may be an option for you, may not. But that's a definite point that I used to be like, no, that's stupid. Why am I going to carry a big honking knife that does absolutely nothing? And I have survival knives that cover all this just fine. But on my end, I PSA all the way. I recommend them all the time because of their cost. There is one company that currently I have an issue with that I know people love to death is Daniel Defense. And I think back in the day they were a phenomenal product. They're having issues. I will caveat this. Every company out there from DPMS, Bushmaster to Colt have gone through eras where their guns sucked. So if you hear this later, that's fine. Check on it. Always check to see what's going on with the production. And I've seen PSAs come out with some guns that had issues, and now they fix them straight up. They correct all their issues, but they have their issues too. And I've seen a couple not work for whatever reason, or somebody bought a blend upper or lower, and somebody over torqued something in the factory, and it caused a problem. If you buy their standard stuff or even their Saber line, I don't think there's any problems with it. Also, second, I think the Prism optics are the best way. That way, even if you don't have batteries, they still function, and that's a good option for a lot of people. Granted, without the light at night, it kind of diminishes your quality. But that said, yeah, 3X, 5X. I think the 5X, that was the one Rabbit was talking about. That was the first one I got to play with, and thanks to Patriot Man, he's like, here's a gun that he'd put half together in the dark the night before, because I didn't have an AR-15 with me at the time. And he gave me this optic. He's like, oh, I'm going to have to write an article on it. And that started my path down American Partisan and writing for them. And I love that optic. I think their Aurora sight's awesome, and if you read into it and you learn more about that and what they had planned out, those optics are phenomenal. There's probably better out there. There's Lucid out there too, which is a different setup. It's got a blue dot system, blue luminescence for white phos optics, night vision and stuff like that too. I'm going to round this out. I'm going to ask Mando, you got any closing thoughts or anything you'd like to add?
Well, I'll make the point again. If it's got a good warranty, it should be fine. There's plenty of good names out there. I'll back you up on Daniel Defense. I don't know what's going on with them right now. I hope they turn stuff around. Bravo Company is a really good name out there too.
BCM, I believe, is still a good one.
Well, that's Bravo Company,
okay.
yeah.
BCM,
and I think I would be careful with Geissley nowadays. I'm leaning more towards Timney and Trigger Tech triggers than the Geissley stuff. I can't say anything more than that. Smith & Wesson's another good brand that's making good stuff. So your mileage may vary. A lot of guys like Palmetto. I think anything on that same kind of line is going to be good. And if you're looking at the ability to get support, and so ultimately that's what we have to deal with as partisan, quote unquote partisans. We need to be able to get ammo. We need to be able to get mags. And so the commonality between, again, you guys are going to team stuff. I'm going to disagree on the stock that you guys have picked. I like the A2. I love the A2. It fits me fantastic. But I think the CTR stock is phenomenal. Magpul has done a really good job over the years. I know there was a lot of kind of hinky stuff with them as far as like their quality, but it's really come up. The mags are fantastic. The Glock mags are really good. So you have a lot of good options. Price point you're going to be able to get in no matter where you're at. You're going to have a good shooting rifle. And if it doesn't shoot, give it to your buddy and make sure.
I have a quick add-on question for you, because we do have a little bit of time to do this. Magazines. What magazines would you tell people to grab for starting out?
My go-to is a good metal magazine, because I deal with cold temperatures and I don't want my plastic ones to split in half. But Magpuls are good. The Duramags are the ones that I usually go to if I can get them. The Hex mags I've heard okay things about. So I think, again, it's kind of that if they're above $10, they're probably good. If they're below $10 and clear, I'm not too sure about them. But I've drop tested everything, and the Duramags are the ones and I do things a little differently. I kind of color code my mags. So my Magpul mags have 55s, and my gray mags have 77s, and my black mags have 55. There's certain reasons, but that way I know what I'm grabbing in the dark. So I've set things up like that on purpose.
Rabbit, what say you for your last little closing thought?
Yeah, shoot, I think y'all have mostly touched on everything I guess I would refer to. Definitely, as I've said before, training. You get your hands on a good, decent firearm nowadays. I would consider it's not like it used to be, at least when I first started learning about firearms, especially like the 223 versus 5.56. Oh, hey, you need to make sure you have a 5.56 rubber. Like the pressures and everything were weird, and even to this day, I will go and say that I've never fully understood the entirety of that argument, but I do know that as of now, that is pretty much a null argument
Yeah, I think it's a
now.
non-issue for the last
It's
15, 20
yeah.
years
What you pick
or
up, your
longer.
mags are going to be the same.
Yeah.
Your uppers, your barrels. I
Yeah.
mean, you go
One
and you buy
side
from a
note.
reputable. Yeah.
One side note: the new ammo that the military is coming out, those steel penetrator rounds, have an issue with messing up firearms and depleting the life of those weapons. They also require a different magazine with a special follower. I'll look it up later. I might post it on X. It's been talked about, but we'll find that out later. That's beside the point. I just wanted to caveat that 9 times out of 10, I think you are dead on. It doesn't matter anymore. The barrel twist is pretty good across the board. You can get nitpicky into the science of that, and I think Mando and I might have a conversation about that later. But yeah,
Yeah,
I
and
would
that's
be careful
definitely
with
yeah.
5.56 and 223 rated weapons just because the pressure is higher in 5.56 ammo. It even usually is printed on the box. So I'm not going to necessarily recommend that all the time, but I haven't had an issue with it. I run my stuff with the Wild Chambers and they do fine with either. But if you have I would say a lower end rifle and you're putting high pressure ammo, i.e., it's a 223, and you're putting 5.56 in it, I just don't want anybody to get hurt. So I
I don't
wouldn't
Yeah,
think
recommend it.
they make that anymore. To be honest with you, I haven't seen one of
Yeah,
these
they do.
barrels in like 30 years. But
Yes, I
I'm
hadn't.
sure some people do
That would
somewhere.
definitely be where I would sit. Is I have not, at least in the people in which I have looked in the way of PSA and at least the companies we've recommended, I
Yeah, I
haven't
agree with
seen
you on
that
that. Yep,
myself.
absolutely.
And that would be where I would lay on that one and say, hey, look, like 100%, that is a problem. That would, and that could be even another podcast in the way of
As a
we
whole,
definitely have
another
seen QA issues when it comes
Right.
to
we'll have
ammunition
we'll
during
have
COVID.
autists coming out for that completely. The
Oh
autists will
yeah, but
come
I,
out
I
and
mean, to be honest, I don't care. I shoot
yeah,
what I shoot, and all I know is that I practice what I practice,
yeah.
and I'm going to do the only thing I can promise is I'm going to do the best that I can with what I have, and that I'm going to be as familiar with my equipment as I possibly can be. And I would go and at least expand on the other question you were talking about mags. Um, I've done the same thing since I've gotten to the cold weather. I've gone pretty much straight to metal, or I've been running the Lancer systems.
Oh yeah. Yep.
um, though I don't want to say expensive. They really are killer. I love them to death. I do run the hex mags as well, but I have had issues with those.
Good to know.
Nothing that Rap Tap Bang can't fix, to be honest. But I have had a couple feeding issues. Could be operator error. Take it up with that, but probably about three or four problems at least over the past couple thousand rounds. The other thing about the hex mags that I have found is they are noisy, even in comparison to metal mags. When they were sitting in my kit and I have my weapon low ready, if I'm going through the woods, you can hear that. You can hear. Now, granted, I'm not saying you can't, but at least to me, it sounded like I was just scraping plastic for 400 feet while I was walking through the woods during that last training. It was at night, so at night, all your senses are a little heightened or whatever. But I just felt like I was just dropping a magazine every couple feet because it just sounded so loud. Um, so I'll take that for what it is. They do what I need them to when I need them to, but the Lancers I haven't found. I've found those are probably my first priority or my highest recommendation would be for them if you have the coins. But
I
definitely,
want
yeah,
to.
yeah,
If I could jump on the back of that too with the magazine
Yeah.
thing again, I run almost all my stuff suppressed, and the Duramags I haven't cleaned them. I run them suppressed until they're empty, and they're just
Oof.
dirtier than heck, and
Oof.
they run fantastically. So, and then I didn't talk about pistols just to say I have a Glock 47 with a red dot and a Timney trigger in it. Timney trigger's hands down best drop-in trigger for Glocks probably on the market. I think hands period. And then I'm just running a Vortex Defender SL. I think that the Trigicon line is really good as well. Some guys like the Holosun. So a Glock 17 style with a red dot and a Timney, you're gonna win.
X. Your
are you
last up.
running? Oh, sorry.
No, you're good.
You running the aluminum or the stainless steel Duramags?
They're the stainless ones. When I could find them, I bought probably I bought a lot. So
Okay.
Connex box full.
Always good to have.
Tell nobody.
Oh,
Let's go back full circle. For entry level friends, I recommend you get Gen 2 PMags. You don't need anything special for your basic M16A2 style rifle. Again, barring some weird atmospheric conditions or living in Alaska or something like that, the plastic Gen 2s are going to carry you through the fight. Should have minimal issues there. I guess final thoughts, just rounding it out. If you're listening to this in the future, or if you're listening to this podcast from one of the slave states, make sure you know what your laws are.
yeah.
You definitely don't want to get excited about this and then get hemmed up by law enforcement.
Illinois, California.
Yeah, wherever those places
Yeah.
that people choose to punish themselves by living there. I would tell you, before you get into this stuff, find a better job, move, come live with the rest of us in one of the free states, and then you can
on
hang
over.
out with us and buy. Yeah, and then you can buy some of this stuff and live the life of a free man. Final comment, then I'm done. I will allow team members to get a pass on the bayonet as long as they have an appropriately tuned fighting shovel.
Oh,
I will allow a trench shovel in the bayonet charge as
Deal.
long as you yell
Got mine.
some
The
meme
Russian
in the process.
shovels are
the Russian ones are the best.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
Not
The,
the same
pass.
shovel.
On the mags again, run your equipment, because I don't use them as much because I had problems when I was shooting competition. They wouldn't come out of the gun. You had to rip them out, so that's part of why I went away from them. But the shovel, I think I'm going to have a conversation with Dolio. I think that's the winner.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder how he would say about it. I know the Russians do use them for crowd control quite a bit.
Well,
That's
the SEALs used them too. The SEALs will sharpen them up, according to my dad. They
I sharpen mine
and
up.
swing them around.
I've used it for everything. I've cooked on it. I've cut with it. I've
Nice.
cut trees down, cleared areas. It really, I mean, you use it as a toilet
Probably
if
one
you're
of the-
super crafty.
One of the best things the Russian ever came out with is that shovel. We're going to have a whole conversation about auxiliary equipment. It's like, do
Yeah,
I take this with me or
100%.
not? And that may be based on the weight.
That might be a long episode.
It probably will be. I'm gonna round this out. I think any of the Glock clones are pretty good. I know they've come out with a dagger. I don't think the dagger's an amazing pistol, but if you don't have a lot of money, the dagger's an amazing pistol for the price. It definitely beats a high point, and I think it'll last you for a while. And it probably beats most of your other little pocket guns. That people go to a lot. The Tauruses aren't bad, but I wouldn't be like, hey, go get a Taurus for your first pistol. Let's get something a little bit better, maybe something with a warranty. That way, if we don't go to hell. Last thing I'll say, probably a 16-incher. I'm a little more on the 16-inch side. I think it's a happy medium, but the 20-inch is fine too. Only reason I say 16 is because you can still take the muzzle brake off. So if you advance your weapon and your technology, you get suppressors and everything else. I think that's a good one. And I think that changes over time. I've seen everybody go to short rifles, then we go out to long rifles.
I'm in a
Small
different camp.
pistols.
We'll have to talk some other time about that.
Oh, we definitely will. I am not the expert. You are far beyond there on that side with that one. Anyways, I'm going to round that out, and I'm going to end this. Thank you guys for coming on. I appreciate having more than just me talking when we can. I know the Christmas is a big time. I appreciate X, probably you staying up way too late and dealing with your animals. So you guys have a good night, and Merry Christmas to all you guys.
Yeah, Merry Christmas,
too,
guys.
brother.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. Thanks again.
Merry Christmas,
Always great. Thanks.
Good night.